Hey guys, welcome to the Dawg House Podcast. On next week's episode, I had the opportunity to be on the College Huddle with Chef JR and Gerald as we talk Heisman Trophy race for 2024. Big question is Carson Beck the favorite heading into 2024 season? I'll also talk about Avery Johnson, Will Howard from Ohio State, and Quinn Ewers from Texas, as they are also top contenders. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. As always, that'll really help us out.
Hey everyone, and welcome into the College Huddle. This is our national college football show coming to you every week where we talk all things college football all around every different conference. In these shows, you typically get a good mix of different people from different conferences. Today, we are power heavy with three of the Power Four conferences represented. Our SEC guys are getting over us a little bit with two of them, to the one to the Big Ten and the one to the Big 12. But I think Chef and I can hold our own. We got Trey from the Dawg House Podcast, Georgia. Got Gerald from Longhorn Republic. Is it Longhorn Republic Pod or just Longhorn Pod?
Longhorn Republic Pod.
Okay, Longhorn Republic Pod, and then Chef from the Cocaine Willie. I don't know if YouTube's going to get me in trouble for saying that, but I figured I needed to say the full name. Trey, how you doing tonight, man?
Doing pretty well. I will say Cocaine Willie has been one of the best names I've heard recently. It's awesome.
We're pushing the limits here. You know, we don't play around.
Exactly.
The bad boys of the College Huddle. Gerald, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm good. My kids are in bed, so that's a plus. And I can straddle the Big 12 SEC line because Texas is still Big 12 for another, 3 weeks or so, competing for SEC or Big 12 championships currently. So I can play both sides of the fence if I need to.
I was gonna say, what is that in June 1st or something like that?
Basically, yeah. And I'm just calling it whenever conference tournaments or conference baseball and softball tournaments are in a couple weeks. So we'll just call it then.
There you go. We got Chef in here from Cocaine Willie. Chef, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing great. You know, like everybody else, kids are in bed, wife's taking care of that, so everything's gravy, man. Let's talk some Heisman.
Let's do it. All right. Yeah, you heard it from Chef. We're going to be talking Heisman for this podcast. We have some odds that came out from DK Sportsbooks, DraftKings, and On3 put them out there. Have the tweet next to me here. I was going to make like a fancy graphic, and then I was like, well, if I put a graphic out there, then it's like I can only show so many. So I just put the tweet up. I'm going to go ahead and read it off for those listening on podcast. I'm not going to read the actual odds, but just the names. They go in order. Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers are tied for first. Then we have Dylan Gabriel, Jalen Milroe, Will Howard, Jackson Dart, Garrett Nussmeier, Nico Iliamalawa, how you say his last name, Cam Ward, Avery Johnson, Jackson Arnold, Riley Leno, DJ Uyunglele. I've been saying that one for like 3 years now, so I got that one down. Noah Fafita, Cam Rising, Brady Cook, Jalen Davis, Shador Sanders, and Connor Wakeman. So this is a really, really interesting list. Each of our podcasts here has somebody that's near the top of the list. Avery Johnson being the highest of the Big 12. So he is right up there. His first year starting as well, which was pretty impressive to me. But Trey, let's kick it to you first, man. Your guys at the top of the list. What do you think are the odds? Obviously, plus 900 here, but you think Carson Beck has a very good chance of winning the Heisman this year?
I will say I was very surprised when I heard like they were talking about him being first quarterback off the board for 2025. And I thought, Carson Beck, first off, he had a good year. I think it was 24 touchdowns, 6 picks, I think around 3,900 yards. He's also sneaky good. He can go for a first down when he can. 6'4", 220. So he's got that quick release. But what I want to see him improve on this year that I think it would put him in the Heisman conversation is the deep ball. If he can take some deep shots, I think that's what Quinn Ewers at Texas does a little bit better than him. And I think he had a lot of explosive plays. And it's a brutal schedule this year at Alabama, at Texas, at Ole Miss. So the primetime games will definitely be there. And I know when we have to go to Austin, Gerald, that's going to be some gunslingers right there. So if he can somehow outperform Quinn Ewers during that game, and then also go to Tuscaloosa for a night game and have some big numbers, I think he has a good shot. But he definitely has some pieces around him with Colby Young, the transfer, got Dominic Lovett, another transfer. That's probably going to be your number one from Missouri. Also got some young guys coming in, and Trevor Etienne in the backfield. I think will be one of the top running backs in the SEC. And then I will say Colin Howard, talking about him the other day, didn't really remember his name. And then Colin Howard said he's Georgia good. Not really sure what Georgia good means because, we've been pretty good recently. And Stetson Bennett was invited to New York 2 years ago. At least he was in the top 5. So if he can have some explosive games against Texas, Alabama, and some of the big SEC games, I think he's got a good shot. And he's got a great offensive line and a good defense. So we'll see.
Where is the weakness on Georgia, right? I mean, he's got a great supporting cast all around him, so there's not going to be much that's missing for him there. And also, Trey, if you ever want to do a podcast where we just rag on Colin Cowherd the entire time, I'm your man for that, dude. You're preaching to the choir right here. Gerald as well. Gerald, you mentioned Quinn Ewers and that face-off that's going to be happening toward the end of the year. Obviously, Quinn Ewers, without Xavier Worthy this year, obviously he was much more than just a deep threat, but he was a very, very good deep threat for Quinn Ewers to throw that long ball last year. What are your thoughts about Quinn this year going into the year and just his Heisman campaign?
I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth for a little bit. If Quinn Ewers can stay healthy for the whole year, which has been the question for the last couple of years, he's going to put up numbers in this offense. And especially if Texas reaches the heights that I think Steve Sarkisian wants them to, Quinn's going to have to put up numbers because the defense won't be as good as it was last year. Losing Xavier Worthy, losing Adonai Mitchell are both two huge misses for them. But, they added Isaiah Bond through the portal from Alabama. They added, Matthew Golden from Houston. They've got Jonte Cook, who was a 5-star a year ago, who's stepping up. So I don't think the tools are going to be the issue. Ewers, he can throw the deep ball. Can he throw it accurately is always the question. You look at deep ball accuracy rates and stuff like that. It was always a struggle for him in some spots. But when push comes to shove, I'm just going to say this. The Heisman's like a media award. And if you look at the way Texas's season is sequenced, week 2, they've got Michigan smack dab in the middle of the year. They've got OU and Georgia back to back. And then their last little run is going to be Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, A&M, all probably going to be pretty marquee games for those weeks. Florida, it's a helmet game, right? Arkansas is a rivalry game. Going back to Arkansas after getting run off the field a couple of years ago and then closing it on not Black Friday, but Thanksgiving weekend against A&M. He's going to be on those primetime games a lot. And so, as much as on the field production has to play into it, you also have to think about when you're betting the Heisman, how marquee the matchup's going to be. And so having that type of all those helmet games kind of sprinkled throughout the season doesn't hurt the odds either.
Yeah, very true. Very true. I think the early game there with Michigan, like you pointed out, is a great opportunity. There's a lot of people that think Michigan is, if not the best defense in the nation going into the year, it's one of the best. And so if Quinn Ewers goes out there and throws for, 300 plus yards, 2 or 3 touchdowns, he's going to be right there at the top. He'll probably be ahead of Shedeur Sanders, which is a pretty difficult thing to do. But Chef, man, Avery Johnson, first year starting. He has the best odds out of anybody coming out of the Big 12. I know you're psyched to see him this year. Is the hype for Avery Johnson to be a possible Heisman contender? Is it too much, or do you think he can make it happen?
I think he's put perfectly in a line where, he's the leader in the Big 12. He's gonna have every opportunity. He has 3 matchups. Like Gerald was saying, you're gonna have matchups versus quarterbacks that are on this list as well. We got 3. You got week 3 on a non-con game versus Arizona versus Noah Fafita. Week 7 versus Shedeur Sanders on the road, and then week 9 if Jalen Daniels actually survives that long to actually play versus the KU versus K-State, he'll have another matchup there. He's going to have every opportunity. And this statistically, will he be able to keep up with a Quinn Ewers? Will he be able to keep up with a Carson Beck? It's going to be very difficult for him to do that, especially in his first year starting. But like a lot of you guys were saying, it's a media award. If you're winning, if you're undefeated, and you're the main cog of an offense, which Avery Johnson more than likely will be, you're going to have every opportunity to be right there and stay in the mix. So will he be the outright favorite when we're getting to week 7? There's going to be a lot of good teams that are going to be ahead of him doing a lot of good things, but I'm not going to count Avery Johnson out. He's the most dynamic quarterback that we've had in a really long time, maybe since Michael Bishop, maybe since Colin Klein. And both those guys ended up, being runner-up for the Heisman in their respective years. So I'm not going to put anything by my boy Avery.
I mean, if he can just score 5 rushing touchdowns every game, right?
Yeah, I mean, if he has that,
what was it? Texas Tech last year? Was that what
absolutely? I mean,
yeah.
Not even throwing the ball. You score 5 touchdowns. That's something that can get your name in there. And he took over for a guy, Will Howard, in that game, and who is on this list, by the way. So that tells you all you need to know about what the Ohio State offense can do.
I tell you, I was shocked to see Will Howard as high as he is. Not that I think that he doesn't have a chance. Obviously, if you're one of the best teams in the nation, you're going to have a chance. Your quarterback, it's going to be up there. But, I mean, we have some Ohio State fans that are still saying, like, oh, back up Devin Brown. Watch out. He might get the job. I don't think it's going to happen. But, they're out there and they're talking. And I say to him, I'm like, well, I don't see his name on this list. So – maybe Vegas is just completely off in this one, but at the end of the day, I think Will Howard is going to have to put together nearly a perfect season to do it, because you don't have the marquee games that like a Georgia or a Texas does, and I can't imagine both Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers flopping and nothing happening there. For me, I think it's either Quinn Ewers or Carson Beck in this one, with just the amount of premier games that they have. One of these two teams, in my mind, is going to win the SEC this year. And if you win the SEC, and if you have a great year statistically, and you're the star player quarterback of the team, I think you have a very, very good shot of winning the Heisman. And unfortunately for Will Howard, I just don't think he has enough marquee games to do it. But this is also somebody that thinks Michigan's not going to be very good this year. I think Michigan's probably going to be 8-4, 7-5. And so that last game of the year, if Ohio State wins it, hopefully they do. I hope one of those 4 or 5 losses is Ohio State. It still might not look as good as it has in the past to play against Michigan. So, Trey, let's go back to you, man. Some other names on this list, maybe names that aren't even on this list that you have your eye on. Who are some other names people might be wanting to keep an eye out for?
Yeah, I'd definitely say going in I kind of like Brady Cook as a dark horse. He played really well last year. They had Cody Schrader, who I think he got invited to, or he was down the list on the Heisman Trophy. He's really good at Missouri because he's mobile, and they try to build that offense around him. I think Shedeur Sanders has a lot of flash, but I think that just O-line in the trenches, when you don't have an O-line, you're running for your life. I think he had the most sacks or took the most hits. I don't know if your body – like, great athlete, great guy. I just don't think he's going to be able to stand around. I think, I'm a little SEC biased. So, but I had a question for you, JR. So is Will Howard coming out of the spring the man? Because I know you had Julian
Saying,
you got some other guys. Do you think he's definitely the man coming out?
I think Will's the guy. Devin Brown, he had a good opportunity there in the spring. I don't think he separated himself enough. Julian Sayin definitely looks good as a freshman, but I think at the end of the day, Ryan Day knows that he needs to win it all this year. He needs to at least get very close to winning it all, especially with all the talent he has back. And so in my mind, like in a normal year, if this was a very inexperienced team and, everybody loved Ryan Day and he was all good, maybe he might go with Julian Sayin and roll the dice. But I think when I'm not going to say his job is on the line, I think that gets overplayed a little bit. But when things are, as treacherous as they are now with how the fan base feels about him, and this offseason has definitely helped, don't get me wrong. But I think he's going to want to put somebody in there that has at least started a few games in college. And I think that's also hurting Devin Brown a little bit too.
I mean, I'm living here in Ohio as well, and all the noise that's going around this program about kind of bashing Will Howard, and he hasn't even strapped it up one time yet. Let the man play. He's gonna go in there. He's gonna throw absolute missiles down the field. He's not gonna be scared to throw the ball around. He's gonna have the chance to put up crazy numbers. You got an elite wide receiver court, something he hasn't had in his years at K-State. I got all the faith in the world that he's going to be, and I think he might be a red zone, goal line, touchdown stealer. He might be take some food off of the plate of Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. He might be stealing some touchdowns. So if my boy can stay upright, which I think he will, and he keeps winning, I love Will Howard in this situation.
That's what I keep telling people. I say, Will Howard, he is that guy that in the red zone, he's going to make it happen. And what has Ryan Day struggled with the most in his time at Ohio State? It's been the red zone. I mean, ever since all the way back to Justin Fields helped him a lot because he had running ability. But C.J. Stroud, all those, even Dwayne Haskins, when he was the offensive coordinator in 2018, they struggled then in the red zone as well a little bit. Gerald, your thoughts on some other guys who might be up there for Heisman contention?
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to chime in on Will Howard. It's easy to kind of shrug at a guy from Kansas State. You think of what Kansas State quarterbacks have been in the past, right? Like that, you think of all of the 3 yards in a cloud of dust quarterbacks that have come through that offense. Like that's not who Will Howard has been, and I've had nightmares about it. But as I look at the list, the guys that jump off the list to me, if Jalen Daniels can stay healthy, which is a big question, I think he's a guy who's going to get a lot of flash, a lot of media conversation. Dylan Gabriel with pretty decent odds, he's going to have a group of receivers that's light years better than what he had at OU, and he threw for 3,500, 3,600 yards at OU. Him throwing to Evan Stewart in that offense is going to be pretty scary. Evan Stewart is a guy who I've been saying for years I wanted at Texas, but it's fine. Nico at Tennessee has the arm, has the skill, and again, that's an offense that's just going to freaking chuck the ball as much as they can. So that, I think there's a lot of. It's a very volatile year, I think, for the Heisman, but and then you can't discount Jackson Dart in that Ole Miss offense. I think that's another one that's just going to freaking chuck the ball all over the yard. So those are the ones that you want to look out for, the offenses that are really going to spread it out and throw it a lot. I think any of those guys could probably be. I'm a Jalen Milroe fan as a person. I don't think he's going to win the Heisman just because of what his skill set is. But I want to see Jalen Milroe do well, so I had to shout him out.
I really am excited to see what Kalen DeBoer does with him this year. You saw what he was able to do with Michael Penix Jr., who really relied on his legs so much that he got injured consistently, and that was really something that was a detriment to his game. And then he makes it through the entire year last year healthy. He toward the end he was a little bit banged up there, but seeing what he was able to do, I'm just excited to see what Kalen DeBoer can do with Jalen Milroe, because I really think he even last year was just so raw, and there was so much potential there. If he can just put it all together, I'm with you, Gerald. He can be one of those guys. Chef, any guys that you're looking out for? Maybe some more Big 12 representation. We got Jalen Daniels, Shadur Sanders, Jackson Arnold. He's not anymore. He's SEC. But any more Big 12 guys, or who are you looking at here?
I mean, the Big 12 is going to have their. I went down just the guys that Avery Johnson and K-State are going to be playing. I like all of them. Jalen Daniels, not so much because he's a glass boy, and I think he'll break probably. But, Cam Rising gets his due, but I don't necessarily believe that Utah's offense is going to be as explosive or, have the tight ends that they had in those past years where they were running the Pac-12. So I go to the ACC, and Cam Ward and Riley Leonard right there. Well, Riley Leonard at Notre Dame, kind of an ACC affiliate.
They play what, 6 ACC schools or something like that?
Yeah. So you got Riley Leonard there coming from Duke. I like him in that storyline. He's a picturesque Notre Dame quarterback, similar. I kind of see him as a Brady Quinn kind of guy, where he's got the Irish look, and he'll be able to put up some numbers in that offense. I wanted a question for Gerald at UT. Quinn Ewers' numbers, they're really solid, all that, and he's a plus 900 guy for this Heisman. If he goes down, does Arch, if let's say, for instance, knock on wood for my boy Quinn Ewers, but does Arch Manning, because of the hype, does he fill in and still have, I would imagine that he would have odds on these DraftKings sports books right now.
I mean, I think there's a long conversation to have about that. I think if he comes in, he can put up numbers. He'll put up numbers. He'll throw it around the yard. I mean, we saw what he could do in the spring game and the kind of level up he had from year 1 to year 2 in the spring game. But I mean, I'm the person that probably would have said, if if Quinn Ewers transferred and Malik Murphy was the quarterback, he'd probably be on this list too. So I think any quarterback in that Sark offense is going to put up numbers, and they'll probably be a routine member of the too early Heisman odds. So yeah, and I think this time next year we're talking about Arch Manning having Heisman odds and being one of the top quarterbacks in the group, because he's got the talent, he's got the name, and that offense is going to put up numbers.
Yeah, great point. Great point. Yeah, I am excited to see what this Texas offense can do this year because it seems like exactly what you were saying there, Joe. Even if Quinn Ewers isn't in there, something happens to him, God forbid, we want him to be healthy all year. But even if that happens, it's going to be the Arch Manning show. And I watched that spring game, and man, I was pretty excited after what I watched. Some of it was against the twos, don't get me wrong. So it wasn't like it was, he was playing, the number one defense the entire time. But still, I mean, some of those throws and things, it was pretty exciting.
It's hard to go 11 of 12 in like 7-on-7 though. Like it's hard to go 11 of 12 against air. So there's something there.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I'm gonna throw a little real big dark horse. I hope it doesn't happen, but remember the name. It's Carson Beck goes down. We got the transfer from Arizona State, Jaden Rashada, former 5-star.
Yep.
He can throw it around. Hopefully he got his head on straight and he's ready to get developed and stay. So I don't know what he looks like yet, but I was excited to get him. I know he's bounced around a little bit, getting that.
What happened out there at Arizona State? I didn't get the full story. Did he lose the job or what happened?
He started a couple of games last year and then went through an injury, and then I'm sure that he got a lot of attention from NIL. But there is a little red flag. Originally, he was at Miami committed. Then he went to Florida and they offered him $12-13 million. And then they didn't have the money, I guess. And then he went to Arizona State. Now he's back to Georgia. So there's all that. But I think the talent's there if he's focused. But we'll see.
Well, I can't imagine why somebody wouldn't have the money to pay a college kid $12-13 million.
Right. Before we get out of here, I kind of want to just throw this question out to you guys. I mean, we look at this list and it's insane. I mean, there's really no crazy favorites and they're all quarterbacks. Is it surprising to you guys that like not a running back caught a stray or a wide receiver, anything like that even cracked the list? Is it just a quarterback award basically? Is it what I'm asking now?
Yeah. I mean, we saw Blake Corum 2 years ago. I mean, he had that and of course the injury was a part of that, but yeah, what were you gonna say, Jerome?
Oh, I mean, it is. I think it's more often than not a quarterback award. Like you've got to have, as a wide receiver, you've got to be doing kick returns or other things to get your name in there. Right? Like I am an old school guy. I love running backs. I'm a running back guy. I've been banging the Jonathan Brooks drum at Texas since he committed in 2020, which feels like forever ago. But like, it's just not how the game is run. It's not how people watch it. It feels like it's like the Maxwell part 2. Like it's just like, let's just keep this thing going. But we're 5 years removed from a wide receiver winning it, so it's not like out of the question, but it has to be something ridiculous.
True. Trey, you got anybody non-quarterback that you think could do it this year?
I've been hearing good things. I mean, if they give it to him a lot, maybe one of the Alabama running backs, just because I think they'll run it. You'll have Milroe, because I don't think he's going to throw around that much. He was like 3 of 9 in the spring game, so maybe one of the Alabama running backs. But I agree, it's a quarterback. It's a quarterback award at the end of the day. I mean, he had Devontae Smith in 20? That was COVID year, 2021.
2020.
Yeah, I mean, but that was rare.
Yeah, so I mean, you got guys like Ollie Gordon at Oklahoma State who's putting up, 2 bills rushing and 2,000 yards rushing, I should say. Sorry. If he can replicate that 2,500 yard rushing season, those are things that just don't happen, and I think they should be, rewarded at some point. It's just so unfair that like literally the top 17 guys are all quarterbacks, but it is what it is in this generation.
I mean, Ollie Gordon's gonna have to put up numbers if Oklahoma State's gonna do anything serious. So it might be the year, right? I'm gonna take a shot at Alan Bowman in Texas Tech. Like Alan Bowman can't stay healthy either. I think he's working on like a lung and a half at this point. Like Ollie Gordon's gonna put up numbers. They're gonna feed him. So like, if there's gonna be a guy, it's gonna be Ollie Gordon, the one that you mentioned.
Yeah, I would say one of the Ohio State guys, but with the two of them together, Travion and Quinshawn, I mean, the whole reason they're together is because they both want to, keep their NFL draft stock higher by not carrying the ball as much. So when you got two guys that don't want to carry the ball as much, odds are, and you have to have a 2,500 yard season, odds are you're not going to win the Heisman. So,
right.
So, all right. Hey, good discussion here on the Heisman, guys. Really appreciate you coming in. Trey, you want to tell people where they find the Dawg House Podcast?
Yeah, we're on all the social platforms at Dawg House Talk on Twitter. Also, we're at the Dawg House Podcast on Instagram, and then also at Dawg House Podcast on YouTube, and we're also on Spotify. So yeah, you can follow us on all those. And it'd be great to collaborate with all you guys with the College Huddle eventually.
For sure. Gerald, Longhorn Republic, where can they find you?
Yeah, anywhere you get podcasts, just look up the Longhorn Republic, Spotify, Apple, whatever. On Twitter at Longhorn Pod, Facebook, Instagram, Longhorn Republic. Twitter's our most active one, so at Longhorn Pod. I usually, right now it's like a bunch of women's sports because like that's what Texas is doing really well in right now. But like I'm pretty snarky and dumb on there most times, so check us out.
There you go. If you want Texas women's sports, Longhorn Republic, that's your place to go. Chef, where you guys at, man?
Absolutely, man. You look us up, Cocaine Willie on all the socials. Find us on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, all of that. Follow us individually. I mean, if you follow me on Twitter and you message me, I will talk back to you. So you follow me at Chef Andre Napier, my boy Bob Trollsby at Bob Trollsby, and Fireball Matt Marchesini, who couldn't be with me today, but they're here in spirit.
What, didn't Fireball wear a Fireball costume on you guys' podcast?
That's my guy. He represents the Fireball. It's a way of life for him. So shout out Fireball Matt Marchesini. He's a great follow on Twitter, socials. He might be shut down for a little bit, but he'll be back.
Had too much Fireball. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So, all right. Hey, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you guys for coming in, talking the Heisman. Good luck on your betting for the Heisman this year. We'll see you next time.